Welcome to That's So Rad podcast. I'm your host, Travis Vongsness. This is a podcast about people, their passions, their life experiences, and their stories. As writer Frederick Buechner once said, the story of any one of us is in some measure the story of us all. All of us can learn something valuable from someone else's life and their stories. Join us for another conversation where we learn, laugh, and leave, seeing our own life in new ways. What's more rad than that? Hey, and welcome to the latest episode of That's So Rad podcast. I'm your host, Travis. Now, the Rad Tour bus is going way back in time, relationally and geographically. Actually, it's going way north geographically. So the very first episode of the Rad podcast is I interviewed a classmate of mine, Brett Henry, who I hadn't seen since, I guess, May of 98. And thought, I really want to interview people that have, stories and, maybe I've been inspired from afar. We've kind of connection or maybe it's current friends that I'm close to. And I just think there's some stories or things that they want to share that would be really interesting to have a conversation and to have a broader conversation, kind of bringing more people in to join us. So this episode, I'm really excited because I'm going back to the same formula that I did on that one. This time, though, with, again, classmate from 98 in Rugby High School, Rugby, North Dakota, with a legendary 90s high school pole vaulter, Tom Heilman. Welcome to the podcast.
Legendary is a big word. I think that's totally false. But Travis, it's good to see you, man. It's been a long time.
Dude, great to see you. We chatted just a little bit before we're hitting recording here, just to kind of connect a little bit. And I'm joking about building some chemistry really quick for this episode. I think we did. So yeah, although you were the quarterback in football in the huddle. And so, I think we kind of had that chemistry still from the old huddle. So
yeah, slant corner,
run the slant corner. Let's go. Here we go. Boy, I'm getting stoked. Okay, so Tom, just for everyone that doesn't know you, just share a little bit about yourself, your family, where you're living.
Yeah. So obviously Travis and I graduated back in 1998 from the same high school. From Rugby, I was born and raised there. Grew up on a farm, just south of Rugby. After high school, went to college here in North Dakota at North Dakota State University in Fargo. I started in electrical engineering because I thought it'd be kind of cool to design stereos. Turns out I didn't think designing them was that cool. It's more fun to listen to them. And I switched it up, crammed 3 years worth of business and finance into a year and a half. And that's kind of what I ended up loving when I was in college. Worked for a med device company right after college. I was on call 24/7, just doing orthopedic implant consulting. So there was a lot of time in the operating room. Really interesting job. It's fun, but being on call 24/7 isn't real fun. And had to have a real heart to heart with my wife, being gone all the time. And she's like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "I don't want to do this." And she goes, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "I want to be in finance." So I made a big switch, 7 years into that career, and that's what I've been doing ever since. My wife and I met in college. She went to UND. I went to NDSU. We met at my cousin's college graduation. She was in track and field. Fell in love real quick. Got married like a year later. So it was pretty fast. And I've got 3 daughters. We live in Fargo. My oldest is just finishing up her first year in college at University of Wisconsin, lacrosse. My middle child is going to be a senior, and my youngest is going to be a 6th grader. 3 girls, so totally outnumbered. I got 2 male cats in the house.
Got to bring up the masculine energy.
Yeah. Just one cat that's a doper, and the other one is a whiner. So got to get them both.
Dude, that was a great flyover of the Tom Heilman life and kind of where things have went from 1998 to now. So appreciate that and catching us up to speed and giving us a background. It's really fascinating actually hearing kind of the way your career veered into really different fields. That's some really, although it's not really surprising, and what I remember of you is of being someone that really seemed to just be very curious and I don't know, just like always learning.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Travis. Like, I love to learn, and it's not even it's not getting to someplace, it's the process of getting there that
Yeah,
I think I love as much as anything. And
that's
it doesn't
cool.
really matter what it is. Like, it's just, I love to kind of figure things out and learn. And then when you got it mastered, and nobody really masters it, right? But you've kind of,
Right.
hit where like I'm stalling out, all of a sudden I'm onto something else, and I'm kind of
Yeah.
diving deep into that.
Yeah.
You call it ADD, I guess. There's a little bit of that going on there, but yeah, it is. There's something about learning. This is fun. So,
It's interesting too that so one of the greatest learners of my life is my grandma, who's still living at 95, I believe, actually in Rugby, Marlis Ostrom. And I don't know that I've met more of a learner in my life that and it's like the world is still just full of curiosity and wonder for her. And
mhm,
it's so inspiring to be around. So there's
yeah,
something I think that keeps you young that way too.
yeah. And that's what
Yeah.
I mean. So my job right now, which is really cool. So I'm in finance. I'm in wealth management, right? You get to really. It's
Mm,
amazing how much you get to know your clients when you work with them on very guarded topics, right?
hmm.
So money is part of what's your core to all our life, but it brings opportunities to people. It brings
Hmm.
freedom. It's their goals. It's their dreams. It's all the things that they're working for, and it's kind of monetized, right? There's a numerical value associated with that, but you got to peel behind that numerical value and really understand what's making them psychologically tick. And what comes with that is also their history, right? Like, how did you get to where you're at? What have you learned? What are you doing? Where you're going? And I'm telling you, I get to know people on such a deep level, and it's really kind of cool, on a day-to-day basis, to just sit down and have those one-on-one conversations and
Uh,
ask them, what were you thinking here, and how did you get to this point? It's very different. I think that's what I love about my job more than anything. I like numbers, but I love those stories and those connections.
that is cool.
Yeah,
That
I'm not,
that
I'm
I.
not good in I'm not good in big settings with people, like lots of
Hmm.
people. I'm actually quite poor at that. I feel really out of place. But I love just one-on-ones or two-on-two type scenarios. That's
Yeah,
really, really, really fun.
man, that I love what you said. How you described that. It's sort of the your work with and sort of what finances represent of what people are really into, and it's sort of this conduit more into their lives.
Hmm.
That as you kind of on peel back, that's man, that's so cool. The whole thing actually, I wasn't planning to start on this topic, but we are, and
Yeah, we can
so
jump right into it.
yeah, dude. There's a great line when you love this. Someone said one time that the cure for boredom is curiosity. There is no cure for curiosity.
Yeah, that's
So
true. That's
yeah,
absolutely true.
keep that going. So we're gonna get more back into kind of your lessons, in the finance world or other places and spaces, kind of as you've looked back your life. We'll talk about that more later.
Mhm.
We are gonna go back in time for a little bit here, and
We're
ooh,
gonna dig deep in the memory bank. Things
so
are
here's
tough.
the
Yeah,
thing. So our classmate Brett Henry was on first episode, and that was a lot of
fun.
fun. Like I said,
That was super fun to kind of hear him again.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, he
and
didn't change. He doesn't yet. I just how he talks and the random little stars that go off in his head, just like, yeah, it's just the same. Great memory
well,
too. It's amazing.
dude, exactly that's what I was gonna say. So he has a great memory, a killer memory. All of our classmates are like, "How do you remember all these stories about individual teachers and stuff like that?" What me
Yeah,
and Tom are gonna do today to make up for a lack of memory is we have props. Okay, so I have this. This is
there it
one
is.
of them. Yep, look at the frost and glow there.
Yeah, so this
Now,
is this is an infamous rugby statuette, right? These
yes,
things made their way
yes.
around town at the various downtown businesses. Every old
So
lady that come into the coffee shop to get to see our bleached heads.
exactly.
We're all
So
gonna have a serious case of skull skin cancer later in life. It's gonna be
exactly.
awful. The entire '98 boys class
Ex-
dies of skin
there's got to
cancer.
be case studies on the peroxide and 98 guys.
Yeah,
98,
hey,
99, 2000.
you didn't get into this with Brett, but speaking of chemicals, do you
Okay.
remember? Maybe you were involved in this. I was not there. But was it Mentos and Coke or Works toilet bowl cleaner in like 2 liter bottles? Remember they were like blowing them up.
Oh yeah.
I think it was it Luke and Mac? Weren't
Okay.
they like weren't they admitted to the hospital or some damn
Were
thing?
they really?
I
I
think
mean,
they
now that you
were
say
like
that,
on Drake Animus, and they were like they decided to take one of these Works toilet bowl bombs, and they were gonna like throw it into a pasture at some cows.
okay.
I wasn't there. I just again, my memory could be totally distorted. but the top kept blowing off, and they would say, we gotta tape the top on, right? So I think they were taping the top, and I think Hootie was sitting there like, it's getting tight, and I think Luke's like, just give it one more, and it blew up in their face.
Oh
So they
my
had this like
gosh.
worst toilet bowl cleaner, chemical accident. And I thought they ended up in the hospital or something. I remember somebody called me later that day and they told me that this happened. And I was like,
Really? I
I was
mean,
just typical shake my head. It was just like, what are they thinking? Just like Brett riding a bicycle, down the commons.
right. Oh, yeah. If you're watching this episode, please comment on that story. Class of 98ers or whoever else from Rugby
Works
High.
toilet bowl bombs.
Works. Yeah. Let's verify that story.
That
Okay.
probably that probably got them on a list of some sort, some like terrorist watch list. ICE is going to show up and pull them out of their jobs currently.
Yeah, this episode just opened
This
the
is
whole
it.
can. They didn't realize they thought it was over. It's just getting started. So, speaking of just getting started, so I was going to say, Tom, the last time, okay, I saw you was May of 98 graduation. And I believe the day before that, if I'm right, if that was Sunday, maybe the day before that was a Saturday, and I was handing you a baton on the state track meet. Would that have been the day before graduation that year?
Did,
Oh, he
you're
reaches
right.
down.
No, I think you're right. And this is a perfect segue into the next prop.
The next
All right.
prop.
Yeah. Do you remember this thing?
Whoa, yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. This is how big it got after we left. This is a tape roll. This is athletic tape. Our senior year, we started with one little roll of athletic tape, and we started unwrapping more and more. And we'd go around and get the other team's athletic tapes, and they'd let us take it, and we would just continue to wrap and wrap and wrap. And this thing apparently went on for like a year or two after us, and I think it was about here when we left. And then all these additional rolls of tape went on it. So the funny thing is, this thing floated around apparently from like Luke to Jason Free to Vanessa Bowe's house, and it sat in her garage forever. And then sometime later, they asked me, "Do you want it?" I'm like, "You still have that thing?" I'm like, "I'll take it." I mean, that's a great.
Dude,
I
that's
think
a
it's in
relic.
my garage. It's freaking heavy. And it
How
probably
heavy do you think
smells like,
that is?
I don't know. It probably smells like old
You
ankles.
probably could get athlete's foot just holding that. I don't know if you want
Yeah,
to. I mean,
probably. Yeah,
I
right.
mean, but
Let's go.
it's yeah. Just make sure you wash your hands after that.
Right.
That is crazy.
But yeah, that thing, I just when you said, "Hey, we gotta have this podcast," I'm like, this is perfect opportunity to pull that old baby out.
I'm.
It's
That is
gotta
gonna make.
be it's gotta be 1,000 rolls of tape. I mean,
Well, I was gonna say it reminds me of tree rings where you're trying to tell the years. I mean, but
yeah.
the years and tape rolls here. That's like
There's one roll and there's one in here that's black, and I can see it, and it's literally like half a millimeter. It's towards the end, so
really.
like one black roll maybe made one or two rounds. Just think how many rounds are on it. Like, what a waste of tape.
That is that okay? Because I knew you had a surprise relic. I didn't know it was that. That's even better
Yeah.
than I would have thought. I mean,
I gotta go take it up to Rugby and just put it in their like trophy case or something.
you have to. It needs
Around
to
the
just
around the
make a
98 years.
tour.
Yeah,
It has to be like the Stanley Cup,
there
just
it is.
touring
I'm
around,
gonna ship it to you. It's gonna cost like $270.
right?
Yeah,
And then you're gonna get a bad rash after you hold it. So
you get pulled over by ice. You're like,
right,
yeah,
it's all connecting. So
yeah.
okay. With that being said, we're gonna kind of go. We're bouncing all over the place here, but both grew up in this small town of North Dakota Rugby, farming egg town. Tom, just memory. What do you want to talk about as far as like just farm life, small town of Rugby?
Let's go back to that track meet.
Okay, we're going track meet first.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, you had mentioned the baton, and that is absolutely right. You ran
Okay.
like one of the 4x4. I
Yep.
ran like two, and I would hand to Luke, and Luke would hand to Travis Anderson. And like we went to a state meet that year. I think we were pretty much undefeated. We were pretty tough. We were pretty good.
We were tough.
We were very good. So we get to the state meet and we run against Minot Ryan, right?
I think
And
so.
that was kind
Yep.
of our rival. And we had beaten them all year long, and they beat us that year. Both of us ended up under the state record time. Um, That state record held until last year.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so
Until
last year
last
it
year.
finally got broke. Yeah, I was at the state meet. My daughter was running, and they had talked about mine and Ryan holding it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that goes way back to '98. I remember
So
that
are
race.
you saying then if we would have come in, so it's hard to tell the difference between our two, but like I guess
Yeah,
would you have said if we would have won that race, we would have even had maybe the record for
we might
several.
have. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know. I remember seeing that, and then just brought back that memory. I was like, that's right. I mean, it was a great race too. I mean, it was a pretty close race. Just they had Jared Essler, who was such a machine, and and he was a sophomore. I ended up running with Jared at NDSU, and
Oh,
great.
did you?
Yeah, we've stayed in touch, and we've
Wow.
been friends.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Partly because for me, that was the first year I ever went on track. Hated it, hated running, and I did. I wanted to be just long jump, and I was out there for the girls, and that neither panned out. Um, so I got put in the 400 because of our football coach. And so what I remember about that race day was, I mean, you're the veteran, pole vaulting sprinter. I mean, by your senior year, you've been through how many state meets at that point? What,
I
three, four,
four at least.
eighth grade on?
I don't know about eighth grade. I don't remember if I made
Okay.
eighth grade, but definitely freshman year. I remember that.
Okay. So for me, and if you know anything about track, I mean, the 4x400
Is that
is
your first year?
yeah, the first year for me, and it's also, that's the finale.
Yeah,
That
it's
is the
the last race.
finale of a 2-day meet.
Yeah.
So as everybody else is like carb loading and then racing or like getting a race out of the way and just chilling, having fun, this dude on year one is trying to like figure out how do I like not what do I do for 2 days and then run this last
Yeah.
race.
Yeah. And it was hot too. It was, I remember that last year
Hot.
was hot. Yeah.
And if I was remembering, and I don't want to make anyone feel bad here, but we were leading, I believe, into the leg three. But as you said, this Jared dude.
Jared was a beast. He was a beast. I
So
mean, he was at NDSU Hall of Fame and
because our anchor leg was it
multi-time All-American.
Anderson, he
Yeah.
he was great, but he wouldn't have been able to stand a chance on.
I remember Luke gave Anderson the baton with the lead, and I just remember thinking like they're close enough that he might catch him,
Okay,
just because Jared is just so good.
we
And
didn't have the window we needed to.
we did, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
and it just happens, right?
it just
It's
happens.
what
Sure.
it is, right? They put me
Yep.
in whatever. It's not nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I just it
Dude.
said that that was a good memory though. I remember you. I remember your face coming down that final 50, and I'm just like, all right, and you're just like, it's so freaking tired,
I got
You
nothing.
just see it in your face, and we all feel like that at the end of a
Yeah.
4 hour.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. You
Oh
stick the
man.
stick.
And just you take it, Tom.
Yeah.
Now the one
Works.
other last thing I've got on that is like 3 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe. I can't remember, but we were back up in Rugby, still have family up there, and went to the high school, and just kind of walking the halls or whatever, and my sister's banner still hanging in there. Saw your stuff. I think when I looked on one of the walls of the race stuff that still held a school record. I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
if that's
I would
changed.
have to
So
think so.
that may go for yeah
Yeah, we had
forever.
some great performances that year. I mean,
Yeah.
like Jason Free was a very good triple jumper, and he I know broke the school record and broke some conference and region records. Um, and we had the 4x4 team. I mean, we had some very good 400 and 200 runners. Um, our pole vault team was, our group there was always deep. So yeah, I mean, we set some really high marks that year. There's quite a few
Yeah.
records.
That's a
It's a
great
great,
it's a great
great.
memory. And I think looking back, I think we graduated the next day, if I'm not mistaken.
I
I
think
feel
you're
like it
right.
was like
Yeah.
literally that whole deal and okay, walk and get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. It all comes to a culmination. We're like in 2 days, right? It's just,
Quick. Yeah, that's it. That was wild.
yeah.
Yeah,
And there was
man.
yeah, that night, I think it was after graduation, where we up in the hills of Mike Bowler's
Yeah.
pasture
That sounds right.
on fire. Yeah.
The finale, it's it.
The finale. Yeah.
It's all over.
It was good.
What else do you remember of just like farm life, small town life?
Yeah. Small town farm. I mean, when you're in the middle of growing up on a farm, you think this sucks, right? Like my friends
Mhm.
are, in town, they're doing their thing, and I'm out here bouncing around in a tractor all day.
Yep.
But when you look back on it years later, you learn so much about just patience, consistency, hard
Mm,
work, um, the importance of having your family and being there as a unit and working together on things. And I don't know, I mean, people say this all the time, but I was so fortunate to grow up not only where I did, but with the parents and the family that I did. Um,
yeah.
we were all close. My parents I mean, we're still close. My brothers both live in Fargo, and we're able to see each other quite a bit. But
Mm,
yeah, I'm just fortunate. Nobody's perfect. I'm not a perfect parent. I know my
hmm.
parents weren't perfect parents, but they were perfect to me,
Yeah.
and that was awesome. It was a really good place to grow up. And Rugby's a great town. It really is. It's just when my mom would get, she had a couple spouts with cancer when she was there, and
Okay.
how the town would rally around her when somebody else
Mm,
would get sick. Somebody else rather. I was just, do you remember Ken Sean?
yeah. Hmm.
Isaac Sean's dad. He just
Yeah.
passed
Yeah.
away
Oh.
recently, unfortunately. Same thing, just kind of came
Oh man.
cancer, and yeah, I mean the church was just full, right? And
Wow.
I go to unfortunately a number of funerals with what I do
Hmm.
because
Yep.
when you work with people, they end up, they pass away,
Sure.
and that was one of the bigger funerals I'd ever been to, and it's in a small town, and there's no reason why somebody in a bigger town shouldn't have a
Sure.
mourning funeral. But I think that's just a representation of what rugby is, a very
Hmm.
close knit community where people care about each other,
Yeah.
and it's special that we got to grow up in that.
Hmm.
Maybe what you and I should do is try to take that more into our communities and our lives where we're at now.
Yeah, that's a great word, man. There is something like culturally and just kind of formative about being shaped by a place that, like you said, highly values community. That small town values of good ethics and morals and connection, and
Mhm.
just serving and helping others. And yeah, I think so. I think that's where what our world is starved for right now. Just
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good. It is, and I felt the same way of you with farming and stuff like that too. Although I'm curious about our experiences because so were you in the tractor a lot, like after depending on the season, but like after school all days on weekends sometimes and
Not all the time, just
okay,
some of the time. My dad was always so flexible with that.
yep,
He was, like, if you want to be in sports, that's perfectly fine. I totally get it. We'll make it work.
mm-hmm,
And I remember coming home from like football practice, and we'd be in late harvest, and I'd jump in a truck and run it out and
yep,
run it back and unload it, and you do that a few times, and
oh
maybe,
yeah,
even too, there's a football game or two that he couldn't get to because he was getting
yeah,
crops off the field, and I'd jump in the combine with him and just kind of ride around, and he'd ask about the game, and we'd talk it through. And he listened to it on the radio, and he
yeah,
was like, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there, and I'm just like, don't worry about it. I totally get it. That's fine.
right,
That's fine.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you. I actually we had awful equipment and we were like just I mean we did I mean
Yeah, yeah,
I feel like our best tractor was from the 70s even then. It's like 20 or whatever years old. And
yeah,
I just remember my dad, it was constantly breaking stuff down,
yeah,
and his patience. And you like you were saying, like there's nowhere more I at the time did not want to be, shoveling grain, being a tractor all day, all that kind of stuff. But looking back now, and you may kind of feel the same way of just like there's times like if I could just be in a tractor right now, cultivating or whatever it is, man, hook me up.
yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, you can smell the dirt, right? You can still
yeah,
smell it, right? You can
you
just like,
can.
oh yeah, I know what that dirt smells like, or what that
Exactly.
that harvest feels like, that dust in the air.
Hmm. The
I mean,
smell of a harvest, the
yeah,
chaff. Yeah, you're right. You
yeah,
just it's like in your bones. It's in you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or
man.
grease or diesel
The
fuel, right?
grease.
All these
That's
things that
right.
you're dealing with, right? Yeah.
Well, there. I'll make this quick, but there was a. So I lost my dad in 22,
Oh, I
and it
didn't
was
know that.
a.
Oh man,
Mhm.
recently. I'm sorry, Travis. I didn't know that.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, when I hear the Isaac, yeah, it really resonates, hits home. But and he was heroic in caring for my brother Jeremy. If you guys
Yeah,
don't know, who suffered a traumatic brain injury and is an amazing guy. But Dad cared for him for about 9 years, and then it accelerated his dementia. And then I became, with my mom, his caregiver here. We kind of all live in the same house, and it was extremely hard. But it was also one of the greatest things in my life too. The honor to do that. But when you lose someone, you can't always predict like how you're going to process and cope with that. And one of the ways that I guess popped out of the blue for me was that sense of like going back home and farming and stuff like that. And even though our family left rugby in '98, um, I actually, this is the story is got on eBay and bought a large field tractor in Illinois. So we live in South Carolina, but we have land in East Tennessee. And I convinced my wife, and she was cool with it. This old, had a loader, and it was a big old case farm tractor, and just to feel close to Dad, and we could have some use of it in our land. And I got it unloaded in the town where near our land in Newport, Tennessee. This is unlike North Dakota, that's flat as a pancake. Up there, it's foothills and mountains. Unloaded off this thing. I had only driven this one time in Illinois, which again was super flat, and the thing takes off. It takes off, and it was in neutral, and I could not get it to shift. And like I literally almost died. I mean, we joke about this story. It would not stop, and it's barreling down.
How did you get it to stop?
Well, that's where we're going here. So like, I mean, I got to just even heart's palpitations right now.
Yeah,
but
it's a matter of memory here.
Feels like Indiana Jones. We're flying down this long hill, and it's like so surreal. You're bouncing around this thing like, oh my gosh, there's a Walmart up ahead, a Marshall's off to the left. I mean, I am going to blow through. It's a 10,000-pound tractor or whatever. You're going to kill everybody. I'll be on the, and literally I could not get it to shift because brakes wouldn't work, too fast. And so I was able to get it shifted into reverse, like lock it in reverse last second, and it skidded in the parking lot. And I walked away and then drove it out to land right after that. So, but it was like, it all that to say, it was a crazy, experience. But it was like I just had this need to want a tractor again.
Yeah,
and then nearly died. But so.
I think it was user error. There's a clutch. You got to push.
I think it was user error. Well, again, this is what 2024 at the time. This is a 1974 tractor or something.
Yeah,
that again,
right.
when you're in Illinois or North Dakota, you don't need brakes.
Yeah,
they have water in the wheels in the hills out there. You don't do that. Sure. But I think it was probably user error too, and it was like the shifter's like so much. It's like moving like 5 inches around before it. Yeah, that was wild.
You mentioned like stuff breaking down, and you're right. It was a hard time in farming. That was a rough stretch through the late '80s, early '90s. Yeah. A lot of farmers had a really tough time. I mean, we had droughts and prices were horrible. So I mean, I think we were all in the same boat where we were growing up at that time, and so we had older equipment, and it was always breaking down.
Sure.
But what a valuable lesson you learned, working with your dad, fixing stuff.
That's right.
I'm always tinkering now and kind of messing around. I love bicycles and I'm just constantly like taking bikes apart and putting them back together. And then back to learning. I think that's what I love doing there as much as anything. Like, well, what if I take this one out and put it in? And
right.
Does that work with this? It's not designed to do this, but can I rig it to work? And there's all those little things that you learn to work with and tools, and you've been able to take that with the rest of your whole life.
Do you feel like that's kind of where some of your engineering mind kind of get,
For sure.
Seen all that. And,
into even the orthopedic world, right? So, when I did that for 7 years, your orthopedics is tools. I mean, it's a shop. I mean, you're basically, for long bone stuff, you're in there with screwdrivers and drills and saws and hammers and mallets, and it's all just basic shop techniques. And how do you lever two pieces to get them to align and fixate them to hold them together? And so you get in there, you're like, well, this is where the pressure needs to be applied. You can just think about it, that'll loosen this up, and then you'd be able to get this limb into the right position. And you're sitting there you're sitting there thinking about that, on the side, because I wasn't in this. I didn't have my hands in the patient. Right. I was off to the side in the surgery, just kind of observing and helping answer questions about the implants and the tools. But some of them, it's really kind of, you get in that environment, it ends up being a bit of a team effort where you have an idea, throw it out, and let's see if it works. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot of that stuff that I used kind of on the farm that were there.
Interesting.
Kind of come back.
That's really fascinating. Yeah. Wow. And then kind of that ability to MacGyver stuff, especially when you have to kind of There's
Yeah.
a 90s reference.
There it is. Yeah,
So
you got like a
we'll
bomb.
do
You got
what?
a homemade bomb behind there, a works bomb you can pull out. Yeah.
Right? Just spilling hydrogen
Yeah,
peroxide everywhere.
yeah,
And
there you go.
okay, I have a okay, speaking of, here's another just crazy memory. So you rode school bus too, I guess, younger
Yeah,
age up to whatever.
yeah, yeah,
So one of my fondest memories, even though we had a nasty long drive, I think our route was over an hour or whatever, lived way out in the
yeah.
west side of it, but Highway 2. And but we had Edwin Pfeiffer, and guy was
Yeah,
a legend. A
I know
legend.
it. Yeah.
Okay. And what you may not know, I don't know if you ever heard the story, because I had to have made the rounds, but I do remember, I don't know if we're sophomores, it was somewhere in high school, I feel like, but Edwin, he was an epic bus driver. And I think it was kind of a common tradition end of year to have like squirt gun water fights on the bus. But this one year there was, I don't know if it came from the superintendent or whatever. It was like we're nixing all water gun fights, on which of course, I mean, safety and probably a smart thing. And I remember pulling up, and Ed told us, you know, hey, bring your guns. We're still doing it. I think Lavic or one of the guys got on the bus. Look, I heard bus 5 had guns on, water guns, and no, they were all under the seats. And he gets off, commenced the squirting. So we take off on the route, and I am not kidding. To this day, I cannot believe this. Highway 2 heading, 55 going, on the route. Edwin's got a Super Soaker 3000 or whatever it is with a 5-gallon bucket, just
Yeah, there
drawing
you go.
water like a
Oh,
Gatling
man.
gun.
Yeah.
And one hand on the wheel and one just dousing. That's the bus driver.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
awesome.
in an age of like smartphones,
Yeah.
and imagine, I mean,
Oh my
obviously
God.
he would
Yeah.
never have even conceived to do that now.
Yeah.
But dude, that was like,
There's a few things like that that I thought about though. Like, so now, well, my daughter will ride the bus home from grade school. She won't next year, but she did for a number of years. And like they have to show a badge, right? Like,
mm-hmm,
and you can only get on your bus, and there's all kind of security protocols. Well, when we grew up, right? Like you just hop on anybody's bus.
right?
It really, we get to elementary
Yeah,
school, and I'm going to ride to so and so's bus of the high school, and then hop back onto my bus, or I'm going to just hop off at the high school and walk to grandma's house, or Travis is coming home with me
sure.
this weekend. They didn't. I don't know. Maybe our parents did tell them, but I
Yeah.
don't remember that. I don't remember that at all. I just remember like, hey, hop on with us, and off we go.
Do you think that's changed there though? I
I
mean,
don't
is some
know.
of that
Maybe it's
still
a small
small
town thing.
town?
Maybe I don't know.
I don't know.
But
But
it ain't
you're right
happening here.
though.
I know that. Like,
Yeah. It is crazy, but man.
but that was a small town experience. That I mean, yeah, you just don't get that elsewhere.
Well, and
Everybody trusted each
you're
other.
in Fargo, so obviously you're in a big city in North Dakota now, but I think what people don't get too is like, it's interesting talking to people from another country and who think they're rural or think that they're kind of country. Like, I live in South Carolina. There's country areas, but I
Yeah,
mean, within 5 miles of a country area, you have a huge population density. I mean, it's like
yeah,
when you talk to someone who's from the Dakotas, rural Nebraska or something like that, when like your neighbor is that light pole like 5 miles in the distance, it's like ships in the ocean.
yeah,
I mean, there's a real parallel there
yeah,
of like, so
yeah,
like we knew isolation. I mean, what, an hour to the mall to fast food to a stoplight. I mean,
yeah. And
it was a
rugby got a blinking light, and that was a big deal, right? It was just one of those lights.
blinking light,
Yeah,
but
kind of the
but it's
caution light. Like,
not a green and red like,
no,
okay,
no,
it's a
no. It's just
like a
one light. It's
crosswalk
like a big,
blinking light.
yeah, it just hangs across Highway 2. Like, hey, there's an
Okay,
intersection.
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
a warning to be careful as you approach this.
yeah,
Okay.
there's the intersection. But yeah, I mean,
Wow.
there was a couple of small towns along the way to go to Minot, but then it would be like Townerville, whatever. And then same
Yep.
thing the other direction to Devil's Lake. And man, you
Yep.
get to the western part of the state, and especially like you said, western Nebraska. That is so desolate out there. I mean, it's
Yes.
just desolate.
Yes.
And
That's
don't
true.
you got to plan your gas stops. Yeah, it's
You
like
do. Yeah. You break
yeah,
down, you're screwed.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a
Man.
different kind of, middle of nowhere.
Right.
Different kind of middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, any other kind of rugby memories before we hit football and kind of that and move on from there?
No, it's just, every night Facebook is great, isn't it? I mean, I don't interact a whole lot on Facebook. I don't post
Hmm.
a ton.
Yep.
But I do kind of read other people's posts, and so it's fun to kind of keep in touch with what some of the people are doing. And I got a lot of rugby friends, right? Like, probably more rugby friends than anywhere. It's just that connection. So it's great.
Nice. Well, that's good for this podcast. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, Tom and I, we've loosely kept in touch through the years. We both have a really big, which we need to talk about this maybe next before we talk more about kind of where your life has went, but
Hmm.
on mountain biking and stuff like that. But before that, we've got to talk a little bit on football. So, um, we were teammates in the rugby high football team, and where do we unpack this? Let's start with first guest in this podcast, Brett Henry, told me that, and we all know the guy's memory, but he said that the only thing he remembers in sports, and he played sports or to watch a lot of basketball games, was the touchdown pass we had in our final home game to seal our fate and head into the playoffs. So,
Okay, so what was the pass? Do you
okay,
remember that?
so thank you, Grandma Dolores, my grandma, who one night was watching Walker Texas Ranger probably and was able to pause that to record this, because what happened was, I think it was a Thursday night, because we had what I think they call a play-in game,
Okay.
because kind of the way the season went. So that meant there were probably no other football games. So the local news station had only one show to cover in town. It was on our home field. So they
They
were
they
there.
short they pulled the short straw that night. Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's and so she recorded this, and so it's what's it, KXMC, is that?
Yeah,
So
that's right.
that's right. So um I shared this on Facebook like several years ago, and it's kind of fun to see the reactions on it, because this grainy old, football highlight from the 90s. But it was I think it was a 49-yard touchdown pass you lobbed out there.
Was
And
that the one you
yours
sent me?
truly. Do what?
Is that the one you sent me back in 2015?
It is. Yeah, that's one and the same.
Yes, that was.
Because,
I think I rolled all right, or I just stepped
yeah,
back, and you were coming down the right. We were going east to west. We
east to
scored in
west.
the,
Okay.
yeah, you scored in the west end zone,
The
and you
west end
basically,
zone.
yeah, you were just running essentially, I think, a flyer out down the sideline and
That's it.
chuck it up the TV, baby.
Chuck it
That's
up,
what it
and
was.
the duck was quacking, and but
Yeah, it was
so
probably a duck. Yeah, it probably was.
I think I heard you say later that you didn't even want to be quarterback or something, and I was like, oh my gosh, dude,
No, I
what
would
we
have
could
much
have
rather just
been.
played. I would have in high school. I would have much rather just played defense all the time,
Oh,
and receiver. I would have liked to play receiver. That would have been fun.
Okay, and that's where I was going to go to. And then I have a crazy analytic that, if you're a fan of rugby, and then we'll expand the audience demographic, but
Okay.
we'll narrow it in real quick. But I was actually just thinking about that. I was like, dude, if you would have been a receiver, and plus you didn't really love quarterback, you were a stud defender. Man, if we just would have thrown in someone that could have just slung the ball, what could we have been? But
Yeah.
but here's an interesting tidbit. I did a little sleuthing on this to prep for this podcast on nostalgia
Okay.
rugby sports. That that home win for a playoff game, asterisk, as it's a play-in playoff game, was the first was the first rugby playoff football win since, give me a guess. So that's fall of 97.
Oh man, I didn't
Okay,
realize that.
not just a playoff appearance, but what would have been the previous playoff win by the Panthers?
Holy, I bet it would have been mid '80s. I don't know.
Okay, you're not far off, but Tom, 1979.
Holy,
The
that's
year
the year
I was
born.
the
Yeah.
year we were
Really?
born, which kind of is a poetic thing then to it, you know, the year we're born, then we come back in the scene redemptive seniors at 18, and here it
Well, the
is.
next didn't the next year that would have been like when Andy Barch was a
Mm-hmm.
senior and basically went Barry Sanders on everybody all year. And
Right.
I think they went to the state championship.
I think so. I
They were
think so.
so
Didn't they get
good.
actual like decals on the helmets and like it's like look at what we, you
Yeah.
know. But you know,
They
yeah, I think
probably
you're
got
right. So
they probably got some pants that weren't made out of canvas. We could have ran so much faster. That was our problem. It was the
that
pants.
well, that is part of it. Although you knew where each other was. But here's the thing too on that 1979 win against Minot High School. Next game they lost to who? Fargo South.
Man, so they were class A.
Wow, oh
Yeah.
wow. Does that take us back to the annals of history? And it was really the first playoff though appearance, okay, since 1981. Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, only the third appearance. So there was one other one a few years before that I think we were playing.
Yeah. 2 years
Yes.
before.
2 years before. There you go.
Sophomores. Yep.
That's where like the pillar started to be made.
Yep. Yep. Because that would have been, I think, Justin Thomas was playing quarterback then.
There you go.
Yep. Yep. That would have been
So
like Brian Johnson and those guys were all seniors that year.
yeah.
That year.
But anyway, isn't that fascinating? To you go back 18 years to wow, we were
Yep.
that was a anemic program.
Yeah. 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 I do remember though when we can hang up the old football and sports memories. Slant corner. It was a slant corner. You know,
Slant corner.
I hit you on a slant, and then all of a sudden the safety in the corner started biting down, or we're going to get him on a slant corner.
That was
the corner. I just chuck it up. That's all I do. I just throw it up to the corner, and Travis run.
Dude, that was You're right. No, that's a solid play. I'm sure that's probably in the NFL all the time. I mean, it's just a solid. You know, you've got the bite, and then it's just like okay, we're gonna.
We played, I think, Castleton, Central Cass for homecoming. I think, didn't we win like 62-7 or something?
I think when you play a team with a squirrels as a mascot, that's probably gonna be the score. If that's whatever. But no, I think it was though. Yeah.
The first half of that, I think we did that like 3 times. I just like.
Did you really?
Yeah. I mean, I remember just like by the third one, I was like, "Oh, fish in a barrel!" I'm just tossing it up. Go get a TV.
So I got to ask you this, as you said, we'll close this segment down on football. But
yeah.
Why was our passing attack so anemic?
I don't know. I always my instinct was to run, so that probably didn't help, right? Like, yeah, I would always just want to take it. My instinct was to run and scramble, so that was the first thing I'd do. And the other thing, and I remember this.
That makes sense.
The other thing I remember too is defensively, I played very aggressively. Like I always just put my mindset into a fearless mode. Like I'm going to go 110 miles an hour. I don't care how big that guy is. I'm going to hit him with everything I've got all the time.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is very contrasting, I think, with how you need to play quarterback, which is calm, cool, calculated, not instinctual and reckless. And so probably the two didn't transition well, because you got to somehow flip a switch from one to the other, from offense to defense. And I think I struggled with that. I mean, it was the same thing in basketball, right? Like I was never patient enough.
Okay.
To put somebody into, I just wanted to go, and so I ended up falling out of every game because I was just so aggressive, right? Like I just the guy's coming, I'm getting him.
That's fast. That's really interesting. Yeah, no, that's that makes a lot of sense. And so it wasn't that you were like concussed or whatever on defense, and
maybe I was. I probably
bell rung if you're playing that.
Well, hell, even during introductions, like we'd come and just like face mask each other.
Right.
How stupid, right? We were probably
butterflies. Okay, let's go play.
Yeah, let's go play. I'm pumped up now.
That makes sense on your aggressive scrambling because now we've just lost all the listeners at this point except for Brett. But
nobody cares.
Nobody cares at this point. But I care, and we're talking, so let's finish this up.
Yeah.
But I think because what I remember was constantly the situation where I would run my route. And then the ball would fly over my head because I'd stop. Well, a good receiver, and this is where I think I am going to blame coaching too, though. I'm blaming I'm blaming part of it on you, but part of it is coaching. But is because if I would have had more drops, we could blame me on drops. But it was that a good, you want to keep running. So I think if you and I would have been more in sync of, hey, you're going to scramble,
Yeah.
but just keep getting open. But I think I was in this, like, I'm running my route. You're back there just kind of like showboating. If we're
Freelancing.
being honest, a little showboating, Tom. Not just that
Yeah,
you were,
right. Yeah,
because I think you had a pretty solid line.
Yeah.
Let's
What?
just be real here.
I had a pretty what?
Solid line.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
You had some hogs up front.
We had some big dudes.
We had some hogs up front.
Big dude. God, Travis, we could have been in the NFL. We could have, if only, right? Like we would have been in the hot tub with a woman named Bubbles. It would have been amazing.
Maybe it's good that didn't happen. All right.
Yeah.
So,
Uncle
that's right. Well, that's a funny little RHS sports memory. But now you also, though, you go on to become a college pole vaulter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I jumped
so
in NDSU. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. So, like, yeah, what was that like? And
it was great. Track and field is such a beautiful event because it's or sport. It's just there's no bad calls. There's not that it's not like there's coaching decisions. It's just pure performance. And cross country is the same way. So I really like those sports. I mean, I like all sports still, but there's just something about that. That you go out, you go as hard as you can, or you do everything you can. You have no one to blame, but kind of your own day, and you give it your best. And at the end of the day, if it was enough, you're first, and if not, you're somewhere out after that. And that might be as good as you can give, period. And that's just what it is, right? You don't have to sit there and think, well, this bounced my way or that bounced my way, or it just is pure, the results are what they are. And something like cross country, I think personally, I never ran it.
Yep.
I think it's an amazing sport. My kids run it. It's positive. It's so positive. There might be some, kind of rivalries between a couple of people, but at the end of the day, when one wins, it's just because either the other one wasn't good enough, right? It is just pure, and so you see that just pureness of it, and I think there's always that respect with athletes. There's that respect with the fans. When you get some of these sports where fans are getting kicked out of games and parents are getting into fights and all that stuff. You don't see that in cross country,
right?
You don't see that in track and field. It's just, it is what it is. Right? It is just a mano a mano.
That's a very good point. There's a culture of kind of pushing one another. You're sort of just like, it's you, but I mean, you're also competing with friends and competitors that are also pushing each other. I feel like I come from the rest of my siblings are big track people. And, my brother Jeremy was a legend, All-American runner at Spartanburg Methodist College. And but it's kind of that same thing of just like, pushing yourself and just trying to just do better and encourage each other. And that's a good point around that sport. Yeah.
But I mean, NDSU's had a very good track program for years and years and years. They've had a very solid track program. And at the time we were Division II at the time. Okay. But they were very solid. There's some, especially my last couple of years, there were some amazing athletes that came through that program, and there's still marks that are, school records and all-time top 2, top 5 marks all set from that time frame. So, very and there, I mean, like I mentioned, Jared Essler, he was multi-time All-American and played football and ran track and Hall of Fame at NDSU. And there's a number of other guys that are in there too. My good friend Nate Schmidt, he's out in Bismarck now, but he was, champion, national champion in decathlon. He was, top 10. Top 15 in the world for a while. And, a year later, another one of our teammates, Andrew Ocker, who's a decathlete, ends up beating all his school records. I mean, it's just, and it goes on and on and on. There's a lot of them. I'm doing some triathlons now, and, an All-American and Hall of Famer, Andy Moen, was, an 800 runner, and, we're kind of competing against each other in these tries now. He's still faster than me, but I sold him a wetsuit here the other day, and he said, "Oh, it's so fast." I said, "That's perfect because I'm going to deploy the parachute in the next race. You won't see it until it's there, so I'll finally catch it." Nice,
set him up.
Yeah.
So did your wife, was she an athlete at?
Yeah, she was a mid-distance runner and hurdler, 400 hurdler and 800 runner at UND, and she was better. She was more successful than I was. She's multi-time All-American and conference champ. Yeah, she was very cool. Good. Yeah, very good.
That's wild. So
was smart to marry you.
We're gonna get a little bit more into that whole thing in just a little bit. Did one of the things that you and I converge on now? We unfortunately just haven't ever made it happen to connect on this in person, but both love mountain biking, trail building.
Mm-hmm.
You've raced, I know, mountain biking, all that kind of stuff. I'm with you. I love wrenching them.
Mm-hmm.
I used to flip a lot of bikes on Craigslist, so I'd buy mountain
Same.
bikes, fix the suspension or whatever, and flip it, and just have fun
Yeah.
just wrenching it.
Yep.
One of my favorite memories on bikes is we worked at a children's home in foster care, and I got a whole bunch of elementary kids that we worked with that were in our house to love bikes and mountain biking. We built trails together and they would fix bikes. And
Fun.
one of my proudest moments, honestly, in my whole life is looking at these kids who are battling their journey in foster care, which is, as you can imagine, extremely hard, never knowing what's going to happen next. And they have this outlet of a bike to fix it and like learn the skill, and to look out on the lawn and see my boys out there, like,
Yeah.
12, 11, 10, fixing bikes. It's like
Yeah.
burned in my memory. I love that so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it takes you back to that time, but that you were first doing it and kind of
Yeah,
love of it, and you see their little mind starting to spark and having fun with
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And to get into something that, you're excited about, and then, it's just a really cool outlet too. So,
Yeah.
Coolest place you've ever mountain biked?
Coolest. Oh, my favorite
Top
place.
two?
Yes, Sedona
Yep.
is a place I can go back over and over and over. It's just
Sweet.
beautiful, nonstop, just rocks and technical riding. Very, I'm still a bit of an adrenaline junkie, so I
Yeah.
do like to be on the edge of danger. I'm to the point where I don't take a huge amount of reckless risks,
Yeah. Yeah.
calculated
Okay.
risks.
Yep.
But there's just something about Sedona. It's a beautiful place on earth. It's got its own unique riding style and characteristics of those trails, and then I'd probably have to say Moab. There's two big
Okay.
classics
There we go.
in North America. But I like
Yeah.
that desert riding. That desert rock riding
Yeah.
is really, really fun.
Okay, so I've not done Sedona, but I did Moab, and the slick rock is like
Yeah.
riding sandpaper. It's a very
Yeah.
unique, right?
Did you
Traction.
do whole enchilada when you were out there?
I just had a day, and it was like I only went by myself. I did. What's the kind of like? It's probably not quite as epic as that, but it's like the what's the sort of Is it Slick Rock Trail? Is that sort of the general kind of?
Yep.
Kind of.
Yeah, you're just riding up and down, rolling slick rock, those tops on the ridge.
Kind of the traditional Moab experience. Yeah.
Yeah. If you ever get a chance to go back out there, make sure you do the whole enchilada. And it's such a unique trail because you start at like 11,000 feet and you're up in the high alpine, right? So you're getting the pine smell and kind of the high mountain smell and feel. And you go through about 4 or 5 different ecosystems on the way down.
Wow.
So it's a shuttle up to the top of it. I think it's like about a 40-mile trail, give or take. But you start high alpine, you work your way down through high alpine, kind of moon dust type soil.
Yep.
And loose rock, and then you get to like foothills where it's kind of the aspens and the birch, and then you kind of get into the open kind of almost prairie where it's grasses, and then it's onto slick rock, and then you finish kind of in desert in the bottom of the Colorado River. So you're just catching this entire change in ecosystem along the way, and it's almost, you get done with it, you're like, man, I'm tired. I feel like I'm really beat up because it's pretty technical. And you're like, I don't know if I need to do that again, but by like that night, you're like, wow, that was kind of like a religious experience. If you're into mountain bike,
yeah,
that was really cool. I want to do it again. It's really cool.
That's
never forget.
Well, I hope to get back there, and that would be on the list. I know, and that may not be the one I've watched. Just like you, we both have geeked out on so many mountain bike videos, and channels. There is a trail, and it may not be that one, but I know it's clearly marked like there's riders have died. Like, I mean, I don't know
I've ridden that one too. It's called Portal.
There you go.
Yeah.
And live to tell about it.
It's definitely there's a couple spots on that trail.
Hairy. Like sheer drops on your edge. Like, is that
you're on a ledge maybe 24 inches wide, and it's probably 1,000 feet.
Yeah. So you're
down. I mean,
you're gone.
Woo, I'm gone. Yeah. I mean, you're not gonna. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one spot where it says, "Do not get off your bike and walk it. Better riders than you have died." It's basically what the sign says through that one section. And
wow.
And I did. I just got off and just kind of popped it up on the rear wheel and pushed it. And I'm like, I'm not that proud that I
I
need to do
know.
this. But yeah, there's
That's
one spot where you walk, you gotta like kind of lift it over a rock, and I have it on video, and I look down, I'm like, holy buckets, that is a long ways down.
dang.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you can watch those videos on YouTube and just get chills. I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah,
that. So to be in person experiencing that with your bike,
yeah,
wow, that's
yeah.
wild.
Portal's cool. It's a great trail.
All right, last section before we kind of get more into your personal life and take it to the home stretch. In your life, Tom, because you and I haven't connected for a long time,
Hmm.
have you ever owned or operated a beard? Owned
I've
and operated a
tried.
beard.
I've tried to do the beard thing, but I get to like the itchy phase, and I can never go farther.
Oh,
I should try. I should try to do
push on. Push on. I did have a guy in one of the previous episodes say he's coming back.
Yeah.
To
I feel like you need to
and
get a brewery or something though. Do I need to start a brewery or
I think that would
coffee
help. I
shop, like
think
an artisanal coffee shop or something?
an artisanal coffee shop, plaid, jackets. I think, yeah, I think the brewery will just come next. So if you've
Yeah.
had ideas to maybe do that, I think you do that, and
And it just happened.
that it happens. I mean, they say a good beard is the difference between Mister and Sir.
Okay.
So just let that be your also motivation.
Yeah.
Difference between men.
Yes.
So,
I've
Sir
tried,
Tom.
and yeah, I'm getting really gray. It's getting really gray. I let it
Well,
go over a weekend, and I shave it. And I'm like, geez, that's like salt. It's wild.
also wisdom doesn't grow on trees, it grows on faces. So you
Yeah.
bring that gray out, and yep. So
In this
cool.
case, it grows on my ears.
I'm with you there,
It's like you turn 45 and there's hair growing on your ears. I was like, what the
dude.
heck?
There's been some
Shave
times
my
I've had
ears.
right, I've had like ear hair and mild acne, and I'm like, how do those things
Yeah,
coexist?
yeah,
Aren't
yeah,
those two different
yeah,
eras? Like,
yeah, yeah.
um, wow. Well, this was a lot of meandering, you know, single track through stories and all different topics
Like I
here.
said, you
So,
lost 90% of your
uh,
viewership.
but we're going for the hardcore people that just
Just
love you or me or this conversation or hanging on.
there's three of them.
That's who we're here for. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Just
Thank you
it,
to
it
our listeners,
it'll
as they say.
it'll get a little worse from here. So, no, it's going to get better. Um, so I want to talk. So now we're going to that was what I try and do in these podcasts is a lot of it's at the beginning, we kind of banter and kind of talk memories and stories and kind of go there, light stuff and a lot of that. What I do want on this home stretch is talk a little bit more to Tom, just about kind of your life, kind of some just things that you've gained, insights, kind of you kicked it off really well, even already in some of the stuff. But one of the things as sort of a side note before we kind of go to that final stretch is, if I'm understanding this right, you just got back from a Hawaii trip that was an
Yeah.
ultra endurance race with your wife.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Bring us in.
So yeah, Missy, my wife, like I mentioned, has done, various athletic endeavors for quite a while. I always kind of stuck to the biking thing. She was kind of more into the running thing and triathlons. Probably like 3 years ago, I really messed up. I've kind of had this back issue for a while, but I really kind of was in a bad place with my back. And I realized I probably need to vary it up a little bit. Just doing one activity wasn't really conducive to, good spine health. So I took on swimming a little bit because I wasn't able to run or bike. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'll try a triathlon. And I just went basically, I'm just going to try this. Screw this. Is triathlon guys are, lame. You're not taking any risks here. But I actually loved it. I actually really enjoyed it. I got done with it. I was like, that was really fun. The 1 hour, hour and 10 minutes, and I did three different things, and I kind of bit the bug, I guess you could say, or the bug bit me. And then so I did a couple more that summer, and then Missy had done a couple half Ironmans by that point,
Mm-hmm.
and I had no interest in doing long stuff. I've always been a short, sprinty
Yep.
kind of guy. But I thought, you know what, God, that'd be kind of amazing, because that's tough for me. It's really hard. Like I
Yeah.
start falling apart after a couple of hours. So I figured, you know what, I'm gonna try it just to say I did it. And
Mm-hmm.
so this last December, we did a half Ironman in Palm Springs. And I actually, when I got done, I was like, I actually really enjoyed it. That was fun. It was hard, but I really enjoyed it. And so
Wow.
afterwards, we were talking about where do we go? What, should we do a different one? And we were talking about like Des Moines or Madison, it's kind of something around here. And then I was like, well, what if we did the one in Hawaii? Because, the images look amazing, right? Like you're swimming out in this beautiful bay and riding up this mountain. And so, yeah, we said, you know what, our daughter's going to maybe be home for the last summer. We don't know.
Mm,
We kind of at that age where we might not have that with them
sure.
anymore. Let's go do it one more time. So we went off. Yeah, we went to Hawaii. We did a half Ironman while we were there. We took our 3 daughters and my oldest daughter's boyfriend. Um, and yeah, it was really fun. My wife unfortunately trained her butt off, and the day before fell and broke her arm on a bike
Oh
ride.
man.
Yeah,
Mm.
so she didn't get to compete. I was so sad. She was bummed out. She worked really hard for it.
Oh, that's devastating.
But she was still obviously supportive of me jumping in, and it was hard. That was way harder
Yeah.
than I thought it was going to be. And it was, it's not the distances, it's not the
Mm-hmm.
swimming, it was just the heat. That
Okay.
Hawaii heat just beats on
Hmm.
you.
Wow.
And when you're from North Dakota, you don't get to train in that kind of heat, and so you're not
Yeah,
real
yeah.
acclimated to it. And you get out there, and it's like, whoa, it's just a different
Is
level of.
it pretty humid too, I imagine?
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like it's 110 degrees. It's
Yeah.
like high 90s, but it's humid
Okay.
and the sun is really strong. And it
Okay.
just kind of wears
Yep.
on you after about three
Gotcha.
hours. And so, yeah, you're 3, 4. I kind of went into that 5.5 hour range. And I was like, I'm feeling it. I'm definitely feeling the sun.
And
So
they're
it
in
was a
those
great,
types of
great
race.
match.
Those are the types of races too. There's cutoff points too, right? Like if you don't get to certain phases in a certain amount of time, like you're like X'd out or.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. There's I don't know what they call it, but yeah,
Safety kind
definitely
of.
just yep. Yeah,
Yep.
I don't know, what do they call it? Time check or cutoff or something? If you don't make
Okay.
it, it's like, oh, you got to pull out. You can't participate in the
Sure.
run or
Yep.
in the bike. So yeah, there's definitely some of that. It was fun. It was kind of cool. It's an ocean swim. I was worried about swimming in the ocean because I'd never
Mm-hmm.
been in the ocean. I floated around in the ocean.
Yeah.
Never went for a 1.5 mile swim in the ocean. So I was, I had to kind of wrap my head around that. It ended up being the best part of it, and it was super easy because of buoyancy. Um,
Oh yeah.
but a funny thing is, it starts at this beautiful like kind of bay, and everybody kind of goes out through this like closed slit in the bay, right?
Okay.
And it's like
Mm-hmm.
reef, and it's gorgeous. The water's crystal clear. And so it's like, every 5 seconds, two people go, 5 seconds, two, 5 seconds, two. That's how they start it. Well, I'm just kind of swimming, I'm coming along, and all of a sudden oh, hey, a turtle. And I ram right into somebody. And there's this guy just floating, looking at the turtle. He's just sitting there floating in the water. I'm like, dude, it's a race. Get out of
That's a race.
the way. You
That's
float around
wild.
turtles all afterwards. It was pretty funny. It was probably my favorite part of the race because I chuckled. I just ran into it. It's just floating here. No way.
That's cool. Those moments, like even during the race, though, you have almost a little distraction or sort of a light moment or whatever to,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
kind of.
But
That's
that
wild.
that track, again, you've done some mountain biking, but when you
Mm-hmm.
have those big events and they're really hard, I was reading this book a couple years ago, and one of the things that was in that book was you got to do something really hard every year, and you got to set a big goal, something you got a 50-50 chance of failing at,
Yep. Yep.
and work towards that. And that growth process will just make you a better human. And so
Sure.
when I kind of started doing this, I'm like, man, everything's kind of, I'm better at work, I'm better at home, I'm a better father, I think I'm a little better husband. All when you're kind of training for that stuff. And of course,
Hmm.
you got to find that balance. You can't do it all the time, but
Sure.
there's
Yeah.
something
No,
about
that's
that, doing something really hard and just pushing yourself into a different zone.
yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting thought, and the dedication behind it, and your drive, and the goal,
Yeah, and it
and like
doesn't
you
mean
said,
you got to be
balancing the
like,
tension.
it doesn't mean you need to be super competitive at it. It might be just
Yep.
finishing, and that's certainly what it was. And on the first couple of things like that I tried, it was like, just get it, just finish it. But,
Well, what you raised there, I wonder if it's kind of getting to, it's hitting on something of where I've talked to a lot of guys on, especially when you reach kind of the middle age area too, and you've kind of at that point in your life often still get alarms coming on you. We can talk about sort of domestic duties that we need to do, and no one's talking, and saying that, but you can kind of maybe lose the camaraderie of a sport,
mm-hmm.
or just kind of our schedules of maybe you don't have that outlet that's like making you kind of feel really alive or like really
Yeah,
pushing you for something. And a
yeah,
lot of guys, especially, are just starving for that. Like it's the thing missing in their life. So I
right.
wonder if kind of what you're saying is whatever you're finding that is that outlet, whether it's physical endurance or whatever, there's something that like, women need it in a different way too, but like,
Yep.
we need that.
Yep. Yeah. I think that just goes down to that, men and women are wired a little differently. And I think there is something too that just primal instinctual about that
Mm-hmm.
nature and hunting
Yeah.
and building towards something and working towards something and that camaraderie and
Yep.
I don't know what it is. It's weird, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say thousands of years of evolution. I mean, all of a sudden here's this technology that's thrust upon us where we're not engaging in those activities as much, and we don't adapt that fast. I mean, it's your generation or our generation, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit of the one above and below us that are in this transitionary period where all this technology's changed so
Right.
much of how we interact
That's
with each other.
Man, that's so
We'll
true.
see where that goes. But,
That's another great point that and I think there's something too, there's the singularity of the focus, because
mhm.
I think like so much of life right now is we're so fragmented. Like we're just it's all of this work life, this, and when there's a singular simple thing, so we have this property in East Tennessee that we've developed into sort of an Airbnb. And when I go out there and it's just to say work on the cabin or to build a deck or to, like, all I'm there for is that and have fun. And it's like, I love that because it's just like, I'm only there to go to Lowe's, have a beer, build this deck. And it's like nothing else,
Yeah,
but we don't have, most of our life isn't like that. And it's not practical that it could be,
yeah,
but that's another example of that singular thing that I think is like, that feels good too.
yeah. Totally agree. Totally
Yeah.
agree.
Um, okay. Now, beginning of the episode, you kind of talked about some of, where your life has gone and even some of the lessons you've learned a little bit on kind of some of your career stuff. But um, in the realm of like where you're now, you've been in the last, sounds like 15 years or so in wealth management. I mean, kind of just talk a little bit about just, yeah, what that line of work has been like in terms of teaching you things or working with people.
Yeah. I was always kind of, I'll credit Mr. Shilkey back in high school, right? Not to go back into high
Mm-hmm.
school, but he had the kind of an economics class, right? And I remember that. I found that fascinating. I didn't really realize it at the time, but investing and compounding of wealth were kind of some topics that we discussed a little bit there, and it was intriguing then. But as I got into college, that really kind of sparked, especially around that 2001 time frame when you had the tech wreck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's, I think, kind of my draw. Like, how does all this stuff work and really what's going on? Um, and it's such a broad field, this wealth management. There's so much. I mean, there's so much information. When I graduated, my degree was business with wealth management, and I remember thinking at the time, because technology was evolving and online trading was coming, I was like, man, there's not going to be a job for stockbrokers anymore. Um, and actually, there weren't many. I was just like, this is a dead field. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to be there. It's fascinating, but it's kind of a dead field. And that's kind of how I ended up, chasing the route of the orthopedics. Um, but then as I got into orthopedics for 7 years and that side of things, I realized, man, nobody has time to learn this stuff. That's the
Yeah.
problem, right?
Right.
Like we didn't learn it as much as maybe we should have growing up, financial literacy. And now people are so busy doing what they do, they don't have time to reflect on this. And so
Sure.
there is a need for it, but it's just maybe not, hey, selling a stock. It might be getting advice and guidance.
Mm.
And so that's the route that when I finally said I'm going to make this transition, it's going to be, hey, investing is obviously a huge part of this, but it's so much more than that. It's about where are we at today? What do you need to do to get to tomorrow and beyond? And
Yeah.
is the picture that you're trying to put together with all the pieces of the puzzle that you've been picking up over the years going to actually get the picture you want later?
Mm.
So, I mean, people ask me, like, what do you do? I'm like, yeah, everybody walks around, they put puzzle pieces in a box, but they never dump it out and look at what they're trying to put together. That's what I do. I help people lay those puzzle pieces out and say, okay, here's where we're headed. What do you want it to look like? Do you have the right pieces or not? And if so, what do we got to do to put it together? And then you kind of you figure, okay, well this is where we're headed. Is this what you're looking at? Yeah, okay. Here's your risks, right? These are some things that could go wrong. How do we hedge against that? How do we change that? What do we do differently? And find all the obstacles in the future that might derail somebody's goals and dreams, and then try to figure out the right things to put in to kind of get them around those potential obstacles in the future. That's what I did.
Wow. Yeah.
So much of our financial decisions, so many of our decisions, period, are made out of emotion, right? Like
Mm. Yeah.
we tend to. in finance, it's an emotional game, and it's an emotional game because it's our dreams and our hopes for tomorrow. It's the freedoms that we hope our money and our savings and our investment bring us in the future. And when we start to feel those start to crumble, right? That's when we're going to make a change to something. And what the change we're going to make is not the right change. It's never the right change, right? You're invested into something, you see that something start to deteriorate a little bit, you just want to get out. You
Right.
want to take that pain away. Well, you're selling at the worst time imaginable. You're always selling at the worst time imaginable. And so everybody knows that too, right? Like everybody's told that: buy when everybody else is fearful and sell when everybody else is greedy. But nobody does it. And we do it over and over because we're humans and we're stupid. It's just the
Right.
way it is, right?
Right.
So just helping people understand that and coach that and be there when that time comes to say, hey, remember when we were working on your plan and we said, hey, what happens when crap hits the fan?
Right.
If we did everything right, you're still going to be okay. So right now, we haven't even thrown the crap in the fan. You just have the crap in your hands. Like we haven't even gotten that bad. So
Right.
look, we're okay. Don't worry. Don't change us. You're gonna be okay. We're gonna sleep through this. A couple months from now, we'll come back and let's look at it again. And that tends to keep them through that plan. So
Man, that's it seems like too, like there's so many hats you're wearing, it seems like in that role. And one of them, it seems like, is you're regularly a counselor in a way. And it
oh my
just seems
God,
like yeah, I mean, as just one of the hats, but just
it's
like,
a huge part of what I do. I mean, it's a
yeah,
huge part of what I do. It's just
yeah,
helping people control emotions. Sometimes they just need somebody to talk to about something.
right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm
Yeah.
literally like a counselor in that instance, and
Yeah.
you just
I
listen
bet.
and you give them a
Yeah.
hug, or you
Yeah.
know, and you, like I said before, you get to know these people so well. Like I mean, your heart aches sometimes, and some of the things you're going through, and
Sure.
it's such a gut check for you too. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is going on. I got to get from A to B, and I've got this I got to be at, or I feel a little. Well, you know, Don is dealing with cancer, or his wife
Mm-hmm.
has got dementia, and every time he goes to see her, she doesn't know who he is,
Right.
or Bob just got diagnosed with ALS, right? You know, Tom, your little worry about having to go and get to the next
Yeah.
soccer match or whatever is really not a
Yeah.
problem.
Really
So
puts in perspective. Yeah.
constant perspective every day,
Yeah.
constant
Yeah,
perspective.
and I'm sure it's constantly making you reevaluate well, like you just said, your own life, your own like, okay, these puzzle pieces, whatever the puzzle pieces in my life that I'm missing or not putting together, or maybe you get a breakthrough of your own life as yeah. But wow, that's a really cool
Yeah,
inside peek sort of into that work and like how you see the world and help others see the world.
yeah. The other thing that's kind of interesting about it too is I end up telling a lot of people, no, you should do that. They call me and they're like, oh, we're thinking about doing this, and I don't know, it's probably not a good financial decision. And I'm like, it's not about a financial decision. This is about a life goal decision. Who cares about the money? I
Yeah,
mean, you're gonna take your family on a vacation. You're gonna remember that forever, right? Like,
right.
what happens if you die and you got an extra 10 grand? Big deal. Who
Sure.
cares? They're not gonna
Yeah.
care. They'd rather have spent
Yeah.
that time with you. So do it.
Hmm.
They're like,
Yeah.
really? I thought you
I
tell me we're
can.
nuts. I'm like,
I
I
can
think
do
you're nuts.
that.
Going. It's
Yeah,
kind of
that dude, I love that because it's like I think on the outside, when you kind of think of someone in wealth management or financial consulting, and I've got some friends that do it. I think the outside view is, it's constantly these guys that must have to coach, always the no, don't do that, or it's
no,
so
yeah,
much about like penny pinching and the doom and gloom of hold on to it. No, but like yeah, you're really challenging that's a false narrative of kind of
yeah.
the
And I
world.
mean, I will say this: we tend to focus on people who are, maybe have a higher net worth, so those
Yeah,
decisions are maybe a little easier, but it's
yeah,
still the same question along the way, right? There's that balance, and
sure,
I the principles of accumulating wealth are simple, right? Save early, save often, save regularly. That's the biggest thing. Like, I mean,
yeah,
if you, for kids, right? Like I got one going through college. I mean, I started like putting $25 or $50 a month away into 529s a year. They were every month the year they were born, right? And it's gone up
yeah,
as my income's gone up, and I've committed a little bit more. But I don't miss any dollar I ever put in there, and it's not enough to pay for their entire college education that I've accumulated. But I got a really good head start, right?
yeah,
It's a very good head start to get them, very close to that. So it only happened because you just start, right? And I think that's the
Right.
biggest thing when people are trying to figure out what's the magic to this. There isn't magic. It's just
Yeah.
consistency. Just do it regularly, do it often. And if you set it up that you have a percentage amount going in, then you got the rest of it, spend it. I don't care. Do it. You're playing a role.
All right.
So
That's really good. All right. Well, also, Tom is a father of three daughters. You said one's 19, the middle one is
17.
17, and then a sixth grader,
Yep, 11-year-old. Yep.
11-year-old. So gaps there, but also a dad of daughters. So,
Yeah.
man, tell us about, just through the years, anything that you've kind of learned of, being a dad to daughters, what they've taught you, marriage, kind of anything in that
Yeah.
realm of family.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it all starts with marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love my wife. She's been amazing. She's been such a rock. I actually get a little teary eyed because there's been some tough stuff. Um,
Sure. Yep.
and she's stuck there through it. I
Mm.
mean, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I hid it from
Yep.
a lot of people for quite a while, and
Sure.
it wasn't like it wasn't like drinking at work, but I would do it regularly in the evenings, and I would just
Yep.
hide it, and it snuck up on me.
Yeah.
Right? Like you just don't
Yeah.
realize that all of a sudden I could wake up in the middle of the night, like, holy crap, I got a problem, I got to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm saying
Yeah.
find yourself in that trap the next day, and my wife found out, and she's just like, you need to get help. And
Mm.
she could have went the other direction and just said, you know what, you hid this from me. What else are you hiding from me?
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
And um, she was patient enough for me to get through that, and I've been sober now 7 or 8 years. I don't know, and
Awesome.
it's just been amazing, and I love her. She's a great person. I can't imagine going through life without her. And she's done so much good in what she does. She left a well-paying, good career to be in the nonprofit world. She said we talked about social media and pressures
Yeah.
for
Sure.
for, for
Yep.
kids these days. She saw such a problem with girls, and particularly adolescent young ladies, where their self-esteem is just cratered. By the time they get to the point where they're in high school,
Yeah.
because of all of the pressures that are around them to look a certain way or do a certain
Sure.
thing, and God forbid you get to the social media aspect of it. It's just bombardment. That she thought we need to give these kids tools and the confidence before they get to that, rather than trying to treat the symptoms later.
Mm.
So she started a nonprofit called Bio Girls. Bio stands for Beautiful Inside and Out, and it was all about just a small group of kids working with mentors, who work with a small group to teach them those life lessons and those skills to think about things differently, and to put themselves in positions where they can believe in themselves and love themselves, and
Very
then good
cool.
things will happen in life. And they've got 2,000-3,000 kids that are now are actively participating in these organizations throughout the upper Midwest.
Wow.
It's like 10-person organization, 12-person organization. It's amazing how much it's
So
grown.
it's really
Probably
grown.
one of the most successful nonprofits in this area. And it's all just because that's who she is. Right? That's what
Wow.
she's always had, that attitude. Well, there's a need for something, so we're just going to do it. Don't think about
Mm.
it, just do it. And so,
Just
yeah,
do it.
that's my wife. She's an amazing person. I'm
Yeah.
fortunate.
That's amazing.
Yeah, my girls, I'm blessed there. My wife is an amazing mother as well. So I'm blessed that my kids have always took school serious. They've always kept their nose clean. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and every kid has some issues, right? You hold their hand, and you try not to. Sometimes you got to let them stumble. You try not to let them completely fall on the ground face first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, but when they do stumble, you help them up, and you encourage them, you love them, you let them know you love them, and that they're always going to
Mm.
be yours.
Yeah.
And yeah, unfortunately, I got a great family. I love my kids. It's one of my favorite things to do is just be sitting there that's my cat. That's the stoner.
Coming to say hi.
Yeah,
Put a headset on the cat.
yeah,
Let's
that's
add
Harry. That's Harry.
another guest here.
Yeah, he
Man,
just likes
that's
to be around people. He's a good kid.
uh,
But yeah, that's life, right? And you work through those things, and it comes and it goes fast. And you give your kid the last bath, and
mhm.
you don't know it was the last one. That was one of those moments that somebody told me, and when I had kids, is like, you're going to go through that process of, chasing around at the end of the day. You put your kid in the tub and you're washing them off and getting them on. You're like, God, I just want them to go to bed. And then you got to read them books and I just tuck them in, just go to bed so I can have 5 minutes. And he said, but here's the thing you got to remember is that's going to come and go and you're not going to know when it's the last time. So
Wow.
While you're in the middle of that, just remember to enjoy it.
That's
And
gold.
it
That's gold.
was, it was. And then my last kid came and she was, like I said, a little bit of a caboose. But every bath was special. It was, wash your hair, little kid.
Yeah,
Great.
man, what a timing to get that advice to, because I can really relate to that as well with, we have a 6-year-old actually and caboose as well. And I remember him as a baby and even now his curiosity, but I just remember holding him and I didn't have the presence as a dad with the others that I did with him. I was like in his world and I looked at the way he looked at everything in the sky and just this wonder. And it was like, we lose that. And I was like, sort of trying to channel into like him as a inspiration to like see the world like he is and be more, we live in a, but anyway, yeah, to just take those times really seriously. And I love that. Yeah. Because it's a blink of an eye.
It really is. It totally is. And yeah, got one in college now. It's just like I dropped her off at the airport this morning at 6 a.m. She's flying to Milwaukee to visit her college roommate and have, go to a concert. I'm just like, where'd that go?
Right. Where'd that go? Yeah, gosh. Oh man. It's life is a blank. I mean, it's just you and I. I mean, here's 30 years ago, we were graduating together and, here we are now. And it's just like, we're 45, 46 or whatever. And it's like, wow.
Yep.
So I would love to link Missy, her nonprofit in the show notes. So definitely, check that out. Yeah, sweet. We'll have that in the show notes to definitely check that out.
I'm sure there's a lot of people up here that have heard about it. It's kind of
yeah. Very cool.
There's a chapter.
If you're in the upper plains. Okay, well there we go. Yeah. Someone just needs to step it up.
Yeah, absolutely. There is
challenge. Challenge has been sent out there.
Yeah.
So cool. Final home stretch. As you kind of get introspective, as the cat joins us again for this.
He just wants to sit on.
I love it. Oh yeah, it's a good cat. You've alluded to this already at the beginning in some ways, but as you look at your life, Tom, I mean, what are some of the really formative things that have shaped you at 45 or whatever you're at now?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. First, family is a big one, right? Like just parents, brothers, wife, kids. Faith is obviously a big one too. My faith comes and goes. I think everybody's does. If that's your, and I told you I love to learn, I love to think deep, and I'm always trying to rectify like the immensity of the galaxy, and the universe, and how tiny we are, and what that means, and how does God have any role in that whatsoever, or is it all just Stephen Hawking science? I don't know. Realize I don't know, but I just know that there's things that have happened in my life that are to me too coincidental.
Sure.
To be just all coincidence. If that makes sense, right? Like it's like I'm going through a hard time. Why did I just have that said to me? Or
exactly,
I was beating my head into that wall for a long time, and now I just got knocked over. Why do I? Maybe I was headed in the wrong direction, and I needed a good slapping across the back to get in the right direction.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think there's just certain things there with faith that I've learned to just it's a tough day or this is a big thing. I don't know what that means, but take my hand and lead me where you need me to. Kind of thing.
It's a good word.
And putting that together with everything that's going on in the universe and just keeping an open mind on things. I think politically we're at such a weird divide, and truthfully, Travis, I don't know if we're that divided or if it's just everybody saying we're that divided, because it's been like this forever, right? Like think through history, like there's always people that disagree with stuff. I just try to sit and be open-minded about things and hear things from all sides and listen. And I think there's a way in the middle of everything. There's very rarely anything that's truly right or truly wrong. most of the time it's just somewhere in the in-betweens, and we got to stop thinking about everything as black and white. And there's a lot more grays. There's a lot more grays. And the grays are usually right. So
Truth is always somewhere in the middle. Yeah,
yeah.
that's 100%. And you're I tracking 100% with all that. I think too, like, I agree with you. I think there is sort of this maybe media driven thing, or just the way the social media, like just the way that our search history can, like, with logarithms, can make, think
Problem.
you
Yeah.
are going to see certain things in your narrative because that's what you're, both Fox
Exactly.
News and CNN are businesses, your
Bingo.
consumers, all that stuff. I think
Bingo.
what it comes down to, and you're saying, and I totally agree with this, is for us to listen, and, like, if we have friends that have a very different experience politically or some of that stuff, like, do we even know their story? Do we know
Yeah.
what they've been through?
Yeah.
A lot of us, like, if you don't do that, because,
Yeah.
like, you can only get so far from, like, whatever news narrative you have, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of it is inaccurate.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's why, like,
I don't understand. I think there's some of the hardest words to try to get around is I don't understand what they're thinking. You're not going to.
right,
You're not going. It's an
yeah,
amalgamation of a million different experiences and memories for each individual to get to where they are. You're never going to go through exactly what that person went through.
yeah,
So understanding is never going to be a real thing. Acceptance, just accept and respect that is
right,
where they're at. And I think if you both
right.
like that, all of a sudden you're at a point of like, okay, we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that. And at the time of, like, the Ferguson thing, and some of that early stuff with race riots and just kind of the injustice around, some of the police brutality and stuff, we were living in St. Louis, and um, I remember a friend of mine who was also a financial advisor and was with some of the Rams athletes at the times before the Rams moved. African American, amazing guy, and he would tell me, and this is kind of the stuff that would kind of be the thing is, as people talk about, well, racism doesn't really exist anymore. This is white,
Yeah.
affluent people saying that narrative, and because we have Obama at the time was a black president, so there's all these kind of things, and my friend, who deals with high profile athletes and all this stuff, would say how often when a client might have him meet him in person, and then their first thing was, oh, you're black,
Yeah. Really?
because the stereotype, right? I mean, it's just like, oh, okay, so I didn't think you were, and then maybe there was a judgment against his ability, or but I mean, it's just like, it's all of that kind of stuff of, like, we don't know what people are experiencing in the day to day, that we just have
No.
assumptions. So
No.
yeah, I love what you said there. What are you most proud of today?
Oh, what am I most proud of? That's a great question. I think what I'm most proud of is that I'm I'm not in jail, I'm not dead. No, that I can honestly look back on things, Travis, and say I I always tried to do the best I can. It might not be the best thing, but I've tried to do the best I can at things. My dad always said this growing up, like, don't do something half-assed. You're just going to end up regretting it and redoing it. And it's always stuck with me. So even
That's
if
good.
it's something like I've taken on and I didn't really want to do it, I'm just like, okay, you're here, do it. Just try to engage in this, try and do it. It doesn't mean, I'm still not perfect, right? I'm still not great at that. I still have, I show it. Sometimes I don't want to be there, but I catch myself thinking, okay, you're here. Don't do it half-assed. Just do the best you can. And I think when you kind of take that approach, just more often than not, something good comes of it, right?
Yeah.
Something good comes of it. So, I think I guess that's one thing I've tried to live by. And I guess if I could say I'm most proud of something, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to try to do it well. I'm trying to do it well, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So living a life, well, if I'm going to, it was the same thing with, like, sobriety, man. When it was like, no, this is it. This is stupid. I need to stop doing this. And that's it. I'm done. I'm going to talk to a friend who went through the same thing. I'm going to get the help I need. And it's over. I'm done with it.
Love it. I love it.
And I don't have anything against anybody who wants to do it. Like, I'm not like that at all. But if somebody wants to talk about it, I'm absolutely like, yeah, man, let's talk. You need help?
Very cool. Yeah.
Never look back.
Yeah. That's a great life mantra. And kind of like you said, kind of coming from dad too, to really reinforce that of like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. Just good life advice. I mean, that wherever you're at in whatever context, really in any situation. So, and two, I really appreciate your honesty too, just about your, sobriety journey and all that stuff, being vulnerable there. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what more of us need to be.
It took me a while, right? Like it took me a while to
Yeah.
get to that point. It's maybe a whole different podcast, right? But
Well, it's another great episode, yeah, because it's we're all battling addiction in some aspect, I would say.
yeah, yeah.
And in fact, there's a great line by a kind of he has a major podcast, but he's a leading I mean, he's a counselor, but also like a huge AA, kind of advocate and all that kind of stuff, and brilliant psychologist. But he has a line of like in his own addiction battle that he would say. Addiction wasn't the problem. It was the solution.
Mm-hmm.
What was a misguided solution? What was the root fueling that thing? That he was. But anyway, it's a really interesting way to reframe addiction.
Yeah.
A misplaced solution. The real problem
there is truth to that, right?
Yeah.
Like absolutely
Yeah.
truth to that. And until you kind of start peeling back that onion and looking at why, what made you kind of what is it about it that you like? Why do you do
Yes.
it? What are the reasons?
Yeah.
What is it?
Exactly. That's the root.
Yeah.
Get to the root. You're right.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then as someone, again, we haven't, kind of been in touch much through the years, but I definitely, through social media and seeing each other's lives, and definitely see like the spark you have for just coaching and, just loving your wife and your girls and trail building and just loving the world. Very evident. And so what is your inspiration? I mean, how do you keep your spark for life?
I don't know. Don't be afraid to fail. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, and don't expect something to just come to you. Like, I think we're all too reliant. I mean, I think you brought up the trail building thing. I mean, this is Fargo. It's the flattest place in the world. Right? It's not mountain biking is really not even the right word here. It's just off-road driving. We didn't have any trails, and for a long time, people said, "Oh, I wish we had trails." Well, let's make some. Let's just go talk to somebody. There's got to be some parkland that's sitting there full of woods. I mean, we can. So that's what we did, right? Like that's what we did. And then we realized, man, we should probably get their official approval. We should probably start a nonprofit. We should probably set up the right structures. And I've stepped away from the leadership of that a little bit just because my time had kind of come. We needed some new people in it. But that organization is doing amazing. It's thriving more than it ever has. But it just, it takes one person to, throw the first stone on the pile to start building a mountain. And, just don't be afraid to pick up that rock and get it going. Yeah, and I think so many people don't pick up the rock because they're just afraid that it might not,
right.
not start the other people.
Yeah.
But I think my biggest thing, I think, in life is just my motivation is if you want something, go get it. And it's not going to be easy, and that's okay.
Right.
If you're not moving forward, you're not growing. You're not failing. You're not growing.
That's true.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable, as they say.
Yeah, that's a great ending.
Then everybody's sleeping now. That's it. Unsubscribed.
It may be a 3-parter. So just, bite size, and then we'll get to the next section. But I love that ending. That was a strong way out of just like, again, very applicable. Even just thinking my own life, helpful words. Tom, it's been epic and great seeing you.
Yeah.
And chatting.
Yeah. It's good seeing you too. And cool what you're doing, man. I've never done one of these, like I said, so hopefully it doesn't get too drawn out.
Well, it may be the start of Tom's another side project. I don't know. Podcasting.
No.
Trail building with Tom Heilman. All right. Great seeing you, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, man. We'll talk to you later.
Hope you enjoyed the episode today. Check out the show notes for any links or resources shared in the episode. If you enjoy the podcast, it would be really appreciated if you'd subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with friends. May we all remember these words from writer Mary Oliver. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it.